Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 5th of November, comes to you from London. And we see the dollar just rolling over here a little bit, the lagging line meeting a little bit of resistance. So we've got a short-term downside pressure. We have met the short-term downside target on the point and figure chart, but we do have these upside targets as well. But the medium-term trend is just weakening a little bit there for the dollar. Long term still bullish, but we are just seeing that dollar weakness becoming a little bit of a theme. The euro actually starting to look a bit strong against the dollar. Long term still bearish, medium term still bearish, hitting resistance, but the price is moving through the cloud, and the short term is actually finding some support. So a weak dollar is very much the theme at the moment for this week. Against the yen, though, the dollar is looking stronger. So the yen, normally the stronger currency, still is weakening further. Sterling actually still looking bearish on the long-term chart, and short-term has turned bearish. So we are seeing a little bit of an unwinding of the recent run in sterling, and that's showing up in the euro-sterling rate as well. We're sitting at 115.70. We've kind of held on to this level for quite a few days, so it's interesting that we've sort of stopped. But short-term, we are just turning a little bit bearish there, but it's not a dramatic change against either currency. Against the Swiss franc, we're sitting at 127.54. Holding on again to the gains that we saw earlier in the last few weeks. Bitcoin sitting at $9,250, holding on to its short-term bullish trend, but the medium-term and long-term trends still bearish, so it's quite interesting there. The S&P 500 index, having hit new highs, of course, last week, looking stronger all the time now. So bullish on all three time frames. We've got an upside target of 44% on the long-term chart. So that's quite something. The NASDAQ also, of course, hitting new all-time highs, and the Dow also hitting new all-time highs. So the US indices looking very strong indeed. The Russell 2000 still has work to do, but it is now bullish on all three time frames. The futures are up slightly this morning. The S&P future up 0.2%. The NASDAQ E-mini up over 0.25%. So that's looking like a stronger opening to the market as well. UK market this morning is slightly up, not making new highs like the US, of course, and the 250 much the same picture. General election now not really helping in the UK market. The DAX looking very strong indeed on all three time frames, not making new highs yet, but looking strong all the same. And the CAC 40 actually making multi-year highs, so this is looking much stronger. Japan was up 1.6% overnight, so looking quite strong there. And the Hang Seng up 0.5%, and the Chinese market up 0.5% as well. So all markets starting to look a little bit better. India was a weak spot, down a third, but still bullish on all three time frames. Good upside targets here. 8% on the short term, 15% is another target there. The Aussie market up slightly, and sentiment also in flooding through into commodities. We're seeing Brent crude sitting at $62. That's bullish on the short term, and the medium term chart starting to look a little bit better. WTI much the same picture, of course. US NatGas sitting at $2.88 has had a really good run this last week or two, and we're seeing multi-month highs on NatGas. So that's really interesting that we saw that surge in August. We pulled back, and we've now moved higher, and we do have an upside target of 297. That's 3.9% higher, or 4.04. So $4 is the big target, but $3 is really the next near side target to watch. Looking at gold, we're sitting at 15.04, slightly on the doldrums for that dollar. But interestingly, we are still holding on to our bullish trend on all three time frames. Silver, much the same picture, of course. And US 10-year yields sitting at 1.82%, holding on to that bullish trend change. Medium term, we're just on the verge of breaking out. So it looks like we've seen the lows for bond yields in the US. And if we look at the German bond price, it sinks lower. We talked about this head and shoulders last month. We're still seeing that playing out. Looking at the individual stocks now, if we just take a quick look at the Dow, the best performer in the Dow last night was Chevron, up 4.6%, quite a big jump there. And although the chart's still not looking great, the relative really falling out of bed, and downside targets there. This data, of course, coming from Yahoo Finance. Procter & Gamble down 4.8%, so we're seeing that chart actually still looking pretty good despite it being the worst performer yesterday. In the NASDAQ 100, the best performers yesterday were NetEase. They were up 6%. JD.com was up 5%. Baidu up 5%. So we're seeing quite a lot of the Chinese tech there going quite strong. And if we look on the other side, we had Verisk Analytics, they were down 3.5%, but the chart holding on, although the medium-term trend is definitely changing. We're seeing that there on the daily chart, and the relative just starting to break down, so not looking great there. Looking at the Aussie market, the best performer overnight was Emeco Holdings. They were up 6%, not enough to change the picture on this chart. And if we look at the downside, we had Pilbara Minerals. They were down 7.8%. That chart still very much in the bearish mode, down 60% versus the market this year. In India, we had Yes Bank up 4%, still bearish on the chart, of course. Bharati Infratel up 2%. That chart also looking pretty bearish. So although they were the leading stocks, still looking pretty bad. And Z Entertainment also has been falling out of bed lately. So it's quite a challenge to find the leaders in the Indian market. Taking a look now at the UK market, we start by looking at the 100 in the UK. AB Foods are up 4% this morning. They have reported weaker numbers, but the market has still given them the benefit of the doubt. We're seeing Glencore up 1.7%, so quite a strong move there. If we look at the downside here, we've got Rentokil Initial, they're down 1.7%, and that chart actually still looking pretty good. Ocado Group down 1.3%, but again, the chart holding on there. FTSE 250, the best performer this morning is Funding Circle. They're up 4% nearly, but not enough to change the picture. Euromoney up 2.8%. That chart looking a little bit better now, still pretty choppy. And if we look at the downside, we've got Rank Group down 4%. That's quite tough there as well. Looking on the European stocks now, the best performer is BMW this morning, and the chart actually just still in bearish mode, although the medium-term chart looking much better there. Not seeing much of a turnaround yet in the relative, but still the best performer this today. And if we look at the downside, it's Adidas down 1.12%, but the chart's still looking great. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.